Hi guys, the topic of today is the power of webinars or virtual seminars. So, in introduction to the power of webinars, well, let me first explain who I am. And so, my name is Fred Gillen, and I live in Melbourne. Actually live in Frankston. That's a Bayside suburb of Melbourne, right by the beach, which is a pretty nice place to live. I'm married. I've got 2 grown-up boys and 2 very adored grandkids. But I'm passionate about marketing and educating small business owners in the power of the internet. And what I do is I help people take their business online so that they get a good return on investment. But today we're going to talk about the power of webinars, and I've got multiple arms to my business, and I run webinarsforbusiness.com. I also got fredgillen.com, moremarketingideas.com, and Nitty Gritty Business. So if you want to find out any more about me or dive into who I am and what I'm about and my ethics and everything else, you can just Google me and I come up on the front page. So feel free. I think that's enough about me. And the rest of the hour that we've got here today, and we should cover it, but I'm going to go reasonably quick on a lot of the topics, and we will have a Q&A at the end. So if you can keep your questions to the end, that would be really great, because I'll show you on the next slide what we're actually going to cover today, and it's quite a lot, and you will go home with a lot of thought patterns that you can action and take to the next level. So you'll get a lot of good value out of today, and that's what we're here for today, is to give you good value so that you get bang for your buck, and we appreciate your time and we value your time here today. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is, let's go back. We're going to talk about webinars. So what are webinars? Well, webinars are really, if you can run the analogy of having a seminar somewhere. So it's a virtual seminar. If you normally have a seminar, you'd invite people to a room, you'd have a projector, you'd present, similar to what I'm doing here today. You'd present and you'd have a lectern and your notes and a projector, and you'll present on the screens. And that's a normal type seminar. A webinar is basically taking that online. So what you do is you do pretty much the same thing, except you're sitting behind a computer and you're driving the presentation from your desk behind a computer with a microphone and a camera. And in some cases you don't even need a camera, you just run a presentation. So that's what a virtual seminar is, and it's commonly known on the internet plane as a webinar. So types of webinars, well, we're going to discuss the type of webinars. We're also going to discuss webinars versus teleseminars. We're going to tell you how to use a webinar. We're going to tell you how you can use a webinar to build your client base. We're also going to discuss profiting from webinars, so in other words, turning it into a money-making machine. We'll tell you about the tools you need to run a webinar, and we'll explain how you get started with webinars. We'll also cover off on hosting webinars and how you actually get the webinar to run. We'll talk about using polls and surveys within webinars, and developing interaction from the viewers or the attendees to the webinar. And then we'll talk about call to actions within the webinar and how the structure should be set up. We'll also cover off on follow-ups and what you need to do once your webinar is over. We'll talk about replays or not to replay, and we'll explain what the benefits are for both of those. Then at the end, with your permission, and once we've covered off everything, and provided I've covered off everything that I've said I'll cover off, I'd like to talk about a little bit about me and what I have to offer and how I can assist you. With time permitting, we'll cover that off. If not, then I'll give you an option to contact me later. And then we'll cover off what's next, what do you do at the end of this presentation. And finally, at the end, I will say thank you, because I value your time and I appreciate you being here. So we've covered off basically what a webinar is, and we've talked about virtual seminars. Now let's have a chat about what type of webinars there are. Well, there are 3 types of webinars. There's the presentation type webinar, where you get on and you talk about something that you've similar to what I'm doing here today, but we take that online. So you'd have a slideshow pre-configured, pre-set up, and you talk through your slides the same as you would at a normal seminar. The other option with webinars is that you can actually have two parties on the webinar, or multiple people for that matter, where it's an interview type webinar. So you'd be throwing questions backwards and forwards to people and covering off the time of the webinar with answering those questions. So that's the other type of webinar. And then there's a combination of both of those where you can actually mix and match them, and then the final one, a replay. So you can have replays of webinars. Webinars versus teleconferences. Well, a teleconference is really just a conference on a phone where you can get multiple people on the phone and you can do pretty much the same type of thing. You can talk about what products and services you want to offer. You can interact with other parties on the phone, and you can interview people. You can give people time on the call and interact, or you could just have a meeting type teleconference where you go through a proper agenda and discuss topics. The benefit of a webinar is that you can take that to the next level and actually put some visuals around that. So whether it's you on camera discussing stuff and then share the camera with other parties or other visitors, or you actually talk about the product and show pictures of the product, or if you're offering a service, you'd put up slides showing the benefits of the service, the strategy that you'd use by applying that service and so forth. So the difference between the webinar and a teleconference or a teleseminar is that with the webinar you actually can apply some visuals, and a lot of people react better to visuals. Some people are audio based, so they like listening to things, but we find that webinars work well because you've got both. So the people that don't want to look at slides or whatever can just turn off on the visual side of it but still listen to the content. So that's the difference between a webinar and a teleconference or teleseminar. How you use them? Well, to use a webinar is really, it's normally some form of lead generation tool. So it's most webinars can be a lead generation tool, they can be an instructional device, they can be a training medium. So there are lots of ways to benefit from using webinars within business. You can use webinars in-house, for example, to run training sessions, and you can also use them externally for external clients to give them information about your products and services and enlighten them on what you're doing next. You could have a monthly webinar with clients telling them what's coming up next, your new product, a new service that you're going to be offer, or just talk about how to get the benefits out of an existing service. So there are lots of ways to use webinars, and we'll cover that off later if we get time to Q&A based on your questions on what type of business you're in and how webinars could work for you. So building your client base, well, that's one of the big things about webinars, because to run a webinar, people need to sign up. So they need to register for the webinar so they can attend. So when you publish the fact that you're going to have a webinar, normally you'll invite people to a sign-up page. They put in their name, their email, and more recently people are asking for phone numbers so they can actually SMS the attendees to get them to come to the webinar. So, and there's a double-edged sword there, because suddenly you've got the client's phone number that you can make contact and build your rapport, get them to know, like, and trust you, and help you sell more products and services. So webinars are a really good tool for building your client base and getting your notoriety out there and helping people understand what you do and sell and promote and offer to them moving forward. Profiting from webinars. Well, one of the big things that webinars are used today for is to actually sell stuff. So in most cases, in webinars and the webinars I run, normally at the end of presenting, there will be a call to action where the attendees are invited to partake of something, whether it's just seeking a conference call or some form of contact so they can actually communicate better, or in the majority of cases, there's actually a product to sell. Now, whether that's a special invite into a monthly subscription, or whether it's a product or a piece of software, or an entry level item into your services. So it might be that they get the first portion of your training at a reduced price, and then you get them into your sales funnel and sell them up into different products. And there's more about that, but that's all about sales funnels and marketing and promoting and stuff. So, but with the profiting from webinars, it's really a matter of working out what you want to do at the end, whether you want to get people into your sales funnel by getting them to call you and touch base, or whether they supply you with their information and you contact them, or whether you actually sell them something on the particular webinar. So, and all of these options are available to you on webinars. So there's no one hat fits all. It's there's a variety of things, and you can mix and match, and testing and trialing the best thing for you is really all part of delivering webinars. So you try one thing, and if that's not working as well as you expected, well, like any kind of marketing, you adjust and you try again, and then you adjust and test and try again. So it's all about testing and marketing, but webinars are certainly a great tool to get your message out to the masses. The tools you need, well, you don't really need a lot to get a webinar up and running. You certainly need internet access and high-speed internet access, because if you're going to display videos or presentations, live action presentations, you need a good internet access. Wi-Fi access is not ideal. It does work in some cases. If you've got good Wi-Fi connection in your office, then it can work, but you're probably better off connecting directly to your router with a hard wire, so that there's no interference or likely interference during a webinar, because technology can get in the way sometimes, and internet access can slow the webinar down or not deliver it correctly. So that's an essential that you need internet access. The next thing you obviously need is a microphone and a computer, so that you can talk, and that's a minimum. The other tool that's a big benefit is a camera, so that you can actually present yourself on screen. And if you present personally on screen, it helps you build your trust, and people can get a visual of you, and they get to know you, like you, and trust you, and help build that rapport. So we've talked about, so the tools you need are, you need internet access, you need a computer, probably a PowerPoint presentation, whether it's on a Mac if it's Keynote, or on a PC it's PowerPoint, so you can run that. And you need the presentation ready to go, and you also need a camera if you want to actually present personally on screen. But the minimum you need is internet access, a computer, and a microphone, and that will help you get started. Getting started, there are multiple tools out there that or platforms that you can run to get started. GoToWebinar is probably the most famous. There's a cost to that, a monthly cost, and that's all based on the number of expected attendees on the webinar. If you pay for 50 attendees and 51 turn up, the 51st person will not get on. So there's a limiting factor there, and the more attendees you have, the more you need to pay. So there's a cost, and obviously you need to look at that and your return on investment of what package you want to get in on first, and how you're going to recover the cost or cover the costs of that. It's a monthly investment, and you can cancel any time if stuff's not working, or if you want to regroup or whatever else. So you don't have to just pay if you're not running webinars. But it's not sure if you can suspend your account, but we'll check that out and see. The other thing about hosting, and this again gets down to the platform you're going to use. I personally use Webinar Ninja, because at the time they were doing a special on the purchase where you could buy lifetime access to the platform for a fee, which was a lot less than a yearly fee, for example. So I bought into that, and I got lifetime access to the platform, and I use that. In some cases I will use Zoom, which is another platform that's out there. I haven't personally used GoToWebinar, but people that use it still use it, so obviously that says a lot. So there are a lot of platforms out there. To get started, you just need a starter pack. There's lots of things you can do to get started. There's also a month's trial with GoToWebinar, so if you thought you had something ready to go and you want to trial it and see it, and then you can see if you get your return on investment, and then book in for the second month. So GoToWebinar is a good place to go. The basis of webinars is that you need to keep clients and attendees engaged. And one of the ways of doing that is to put up polls or surveys. So you basically ask a couple of questions and you get the attendees to respond. And that breaks up the presentation. It's a bit like here where I could break up this presentation by asking people to some questions and see if there's anybody in the audience. But because we've got limited time here today, I'm going to keep the questions till later. And we've actually got the hot seats that are going to be running later on as well. So we've got multiple times to expand on this presentation, but I've got a limited time here this morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep talking about how to get the most out of webinars and how you can use them within your business. Interaction, as I say, is very important on a webinar in particular, because people have got a lot of distractions. Here in a seminar environment, and people would probably embarrassed if they took out their phone and started looking at other stuff if they're not engaged in the seminar or the board or whatever else. On a webinar, you get bored, or if people attending get bored and they're not interested, there's two things will happen. They will either just turn off and turn the webinar itself off and get on with their business, or they will get distracted and they'll open Skype and they'll open Facebook and they'll open email, and they won't really be listening or giving you their full attention. And one way of preventing that and reducing that reducing that happening is to interpose polls and questions, and because there are chat boxes in the usually on the right hand side of the webinar attendees box, you would ask a question, and even if it's just as basic as so did you get anything out of that? Could people still hear me? Can you just check the audio? Just get people to type anything. If it's just, you'll get a lot of interviewers on webinars saying, just type 1 in the chat box if you agree with that, or type 2 if you don't, then I'll expand on it. If you're happy with that, we'll move on. Just type 1 if you want me to move on, or if not, then just put a question in, I'll expand on that question. So just get some interaction by getting people to type in the chat box. And at the end of the webinar, I'd suggest that you definitely need a call to action. You'll certainly get call to actions from each of the speakers here today, because you'll be invited to do something at the end of all our talks. So, and that same applies for a webinar. You need to ask people to do something at the end of your presentation, whether that's to call you, whether it's to email you, or whether it's to buy something. But there definitely needs to be some form of call to action at the end of the webinar. Follow-ups is something that a lot of people miss out on. The benefit of webinars are that you've got the registration forms, so you know who's attended. A lot of the platforms will actually tell you, you know who's applied to attend, who's registered. A lot of the platforms will actually give you reports that will tell you who actually attended. They'll also tell you when they dropped off the webinar. So if they stayed right through till the end, or if they dropped off 15 minutes in. And this information is valuable because it will tell you what percentage of your audience you're losing at what stage of the webinar, which can give you the ability to adjust your next webinar so that you don't lose those people the next time round. So webinars are very powerful from a reporting aspect. You can get some really good stats that will tell you how to adjust your presentation next time so that you keep people engaged, enthused, involved, and like what you deliver. Replays or not replays? Well, the jury's out a little bit on that. And why I say that is because replays can be good in that you can open up your audience to more people, because people that couldn't attend your webinar can see the replay, see your offer, see your presentation, and hopefully give you the reaction you're looking for. The negative side of replays are that if people know there's going to be a replay, then there's no real reason for them to turn up to your actual webinar. So yes, people will turn up, but there's no real incentive for them to turn up, because they know there's going to replay. If something else comes up, then go, I don't have to watch this today, I can go and watch the replay later. But more and more presenters are now stipulating that there's not going to be a replay in some cases, and if you don't attend, you're going to miss out, which can encourage people to attend. They can also have a mixed message there by saying there may or may not be a replay because it's all in the hands of technology, so we'd encourage you to attend if you don't want to be so direct. And then finally, there's the one where, yes, there should be a replay if technology holds up. So you've got the three options. And it's really up to your audience and you which way you apply that. Test and measure is probably a good way to go again. That you can test it with replays and have a look and see how many people who registered turn up for your, and how many of those registrations actually wait to join your replay. Because again, depending on the platform you use, but when people access the replay, they still have to sign in so you know who attended your replay. So stats are good, and that's one of the big benefits of running webinars, that you can tell who attended, when they attended, and when they dropped off, so you can adjust your presentation to suit. So hopefully that's covered off on the power of webinars and what you can do with webinars to drive your business. You can certainly deliver any topic on a webinar that will benefit your business, and you can invite your audience, your existing client base, and that's probably a good way to get started, that you would send out to your existing client base an invitation to attend your webinar. You could ask them to bring one person along, a friend or colleague or more, but if they bring one, then suddenly you've got the option of doubling the attendance at your webinar very quickly. The offer that I'm going to present you today, and after the Q&A, but I'll cover off on the offer. What I'd like to do today is offer everybody here the opportunity to have a discussion about whether webinars are for them, and it's a free, absolute free consultation. I'll spend an hour with you, and we'll talk about, on an individual basis, how webinars can actually work for you, or if they are an option for you, depending on what business you're in. So that offer is there. All you need to do is just contact me either at fred@fredgillen.com, but preferably today, so we can book in a time and lock that in, because I'm a man of action, and I believe that if you procrastinate and leave things and put them on a long finger, there's a good chance they're not going to happen. But if you want to take your business to the next level and utilize webinars to drive traffic and build awareness and attract clients, then just come and see me after the presentation. We'll have a quick chat, we'll lock in a time, we'll get online together, and then we can flesh out how webinars can help you expand your business and drive your bottom line. That's about it for me for today. What's next? Well, as I said, what's next is you make a decision if webinars could benefit your business. Touch base with me, and we'll lock in the time and whatever. The next presenter, we're going to have a little bit of a break now, so we can have a cup of coffee and have a little bit of a networking session outside. Introduce yourself to people. Use the seminar here today as a tool to market your business. Have a chat. Explain to people what you do and how you can benefit them. But more importantly, listen to what the other person has to offer and see if there is a way that you can help that other person. Don't just see this as a selling frenzy and promoting your business. With that, I'd like to say thank you to everybody. It's been really good getting through this. I know we've covered off a lot, and some of it not as in-depth as we should have, probably, but that's the time constraint. If you want to know more, you can catch me through the breaks, whatever else. Happy to share. It's how I do business. I will tell people, if you want to do the stuff on yourself, happy to tell you how. And no commitment to work with me, but and that will come out with our 1 hour consultation. You'll go away with a lot of information that will help you increase your business. So opportunity knocks, and I'd like to say thank you once again, and enjoy your coffee. Thanks, guys.